Hello, hockey humans. Welcome to my first video.
We got a first timer out here.
Welcome to Puck Detective, the channel where we dive into some hockey stuff. While you're here, I would love it if you slapshot that subscribe button.
Boo.
I can't promise that won't happen often. Anyway, please gently love tap that little like button down below if you like this video. And if you don't, I don't blame you. This is going to be a very mediocre channel. With the most wonderful time of the year approaching and also Christmas, I thought it would be fun to have a little travel back in time and have a look at the best Canadian World Junior hockey teams ever. Of course, when you think of rating teams, you think, oh, this is subjective. Everyone sort of has their own personal opinion on what constitutes as great and what doesn't. Well, this isn't that type of video. These ratings are 100% fact, not subjective, absolutely right and correct in all aspects. So let's skate into it. First, let's do a quick rundown of what we're looking at for a rating system. We will take into account a few things, such as the overall placing of the team, where the tournament was located, the roster, the excitement levels, just the overall feeling and importance level. The 1982 tournament, while hosted in the United States of America in the state of Minnesota, also saw many games played in Canada. It was the 6th official year of the tournament, and Canada had yet to place first. In fact, the 3 years prior, they placed 7th, 5th, and 5th. A gigantic disappointment, no doubt. It's important to remember the structure of the tournament back then was different than the current structure we have now, with the full tournament being played round-robin style. This meant that the team with the most points won gold, the team with the second most points won silver, etc. There was no playoffs, no emotional gold medal game, and while there are pros and cons to make for each format, all the pros for this format would be wrong. However, it should be noted that with the round-robin format, every single game did mean something. Now back to the team. There was something special about this team. Traditionally, it was typically the Memorial Cup winners who were sent to represent Canada at the World Juniors. However, this was the first year that a true national team was created for the challenge. In the summer of 1981, the CAHA received federal funding and hosted a summer camp held in Kingston to start building the team that would represent Canada that winter. The week before the tournament began, the final tryouts were held. 31 players were supposed to attend, but only 21 showed. The team noticeably lacked any big-name players, as most clubs weren't willing to give up their stars halfway through the season. But they did have two brothers, Randy and Mike Moeller, in the lineup, which was the only brother duo to play for Canada until 2012 when Dougie and Freddie Hamilton made the team. Canada started off hot, going up 3-0 against Finland in the first period of their first game and finishing that game with a 5-1 win. Up next was the defending champs, Sweden. Going into the third, it was a tight 1-1 game, but Sweden took the 2-1 lead shortly in. Canada managed to tie it up again, and Wilson scored the winner with just over 5 minutes left in the third. On Boxing Day, Canada was set to play against the Soviet Union, and the team had started to create some buzz. Both teams were undefeated at this point, and the Winnipeg Arena where they were playing was packed. The game was also televised across the nation and was expected to be the game of the tournament. However, Canada was on fire and took the contest 7-0, the worst loss for the Soviet Union in the tournament. The very next day, the team had to be in Minnesota to play against the host team. The arena was also packed and was filled with American jerseys. The US went up 2-0 in the first, outshooting Canada 18-4. Canada scored 4 goals in the second period and went to the third, leading the US 4-3. Each team scored in the third, but it wasn't enough for the US as Canada just skimmed by with a 5-4 win, still undefeated. The next couple of games were easier, an 11-3 win against West Germany, an 11-1 victory over Switzerland. Going into the final game against the Czech Republic, the team had gritted their way to being guaranteed a silver medal. The Czechs were carrying a 5-1 record into this final game, which meant Canada only needed a tie to win. Each team scored in the first period, but the Czech took the lead in the second. Canada scored 2 early in the third to take the lead, but the Czech managed to tie it up after. However, it was just enough for Canada to win their first ever gold medal in the World Junior Championship. After the game, the arena didn't have a copy of the Canadian national anthem to play. Some say it was thought that the Czechs were going to win, and therefore they didn't need a copy of the Canadian anthem at all. And others say it's because the tournament won't play an anthem after a tie. Whatever. It's a true hockey mystery. The players of the Canadian team then took it upon themselves to belt out the national anthem in a striking off-key number that is said to have started the tradition of teams singing the anthems out loud after a win. Canada ended the tournament with a 6-0-1 record, with a tournament low 14 goals against. They didn't even have a player in the top 3 of tournament scoring. All 3 places were held by players from Finland. Mike Muller of Canada was 4th in tournament scoring, ending with 5 goals and 9 assists. Each member of the 1982 championship team, however, went on to play in the NHL. Finland was the host of the 2004 World Junior Tournament, which was played playoff style. Round robin, we don't know her. The winners of each group would get a bye into the semis. Coming into the tournament, Canada was on a 5-year medal streak, none of which were gold. The team had some hype around it and some of the players, but most notably, this was the first year Sidney Crosby was playing for Team Canada. Other notables on the team for the first time were Dion Phaneuf.
It's a double Dion! Wham! Wham! Come on!
Brent Seabrook, Anthony Stewart, Mike Richards, Brent Burns, and it was the first time being nationally introduced to the iconic Ryan Getzlaf. Canada flew through the beginning of the tournament, kicking it off with a 3-0 win against the host team Finland, and then on to a 7-2 win against Switzerland. Next up was a 10-0 win against the Ukraine and a 5-2 win against the Czech to head into the playoffs with a 4-0 record, enough for a bye into the semifinals. Somewhere lost in this narrative is the potential story of Alex Ovechkin versus Sidney Crosby, with Ovechkin defending Russia's gold medal, but listen, we don't need to get into that because that rivalry will just be shoved down your throat by the NHL for the next 15 years anyway. Heading into the semifinals against the Czech, Canada was holding strong onto their 4-0 record and a tournament leading 25 goals for. An easier game for them, Canada took the win 7-1, and for the 3rd year in a row was onto the gold medal game. On the other side of the tournament, the US had also flown through straight to the semis with a clean 4-0 record, which included a 4-1 win against Russia. There goes that timeline. The semifinals saw Finland take on the United States, and the Americans squeaked through on a close 2-1 win to meet the Canadians in the finals. Both teams undefeated, a beautiful 5-0 record. The goal game was bound to be a barn burner. Started off with a goal for each side. It was tied 1-1 after the first and had all the makings of a perfect gold medal game. Canada was in it to win their first gold since 1997, and the Americans were looking for their first ever. The second period was owned by Canada, with the team scoring twice, putting them up 3-1 heading into the third. But the United States weren't down yet. They started the third hot, scoring 2 goals early in to tie the game, a tied gold medal game with less than 5 minutes to go. Then it happened. Canada scored the game-winning goal on themselves. In a bizarre set of events, Canadian goaltender Marc-Andre Fleury, or Flower, came out of his net to clear the puck, which ended up bouncing off Canadian defenseman Coburn and into their own net. It was 4-3 for USA, and Canada wouldn't come back from that. Even though the team lost, they were undeniably exciting to watch. Undefeated in the group rounds, outscoring opponents 25-4. Huge win in the semis against the Czech, and they almost seemed to be guaranteed the gold. The silver medal, however, was good enough for a 6-year medal streak, making Canada the only country to have achieved this. Heading back to 1995, and we're off to Red Deer, Alberta, the host of the 19th World Junior Tournament. Canada went into this tournament with a huge advantage. Not only had it won gold the previous 2 years, it was the year of the first NHL lockout, which essentially freed up a lot of talent that otherwise may not have attended. It's safe to say the team was stacked, and it showed the whole tournament. Kicking it off with a 7-1 win against the Ukraine on Boxing Day, they didn't slow down. A 9-1 win against Germany and an 8-3 victory over the United States followed, gaining a total of 6 points and 24 goals for in just the first 3 games. The next game was against the Czech, and although closer, the offensive powerhouse Canadians still came out with a 7-5 win. Finland also held a close game, but Canada came out on top, winning 6-4 and solidifying 10 points in 5 games. Going into their 6th game against Russia, Canada held a perfect 5-0 record, while Russia was close behind, with only 1 loss and 4 wins. This was arguably the most important game of the tournament, as the two teams were both in a spot to potentially win the gold medal. However, Canada didn't slow down and took the W 8-5, keeping their record squeaky clean and going 6-0. Because of their position in the standings and because of the lame old school round-robin style tournament, by this time, Canada had already won gold. They still had 1 game left to play against Sweden, but whether they won or lost, no other team would be able to beat their current 12 points. This is just one of the many arguments against the round-robin style, as it didn't feel like the final game would be exciting or mean anything. Canada really didn't have anything to lose at this point other than their perfect record in the tournament. And that perfect record, they kept. They beat Sweden in a very close 4-3 match, sweeping the tournament with 7 wins, 0 losses, and 49 goals for. The offensive talent was undeniable, as they scored at least 4 goals in every game and had 3 players in the top tournament scoring. In total, this team went on to have 13 first-round draft picks in the 1995 NHL draft after leading Canada to their 3rd consecutive gold medal, a streak that would eventually go on to be 5. Oh, what? Oh, I see. You were all expecting this 2005 team to be first place. Well, these ratings are based on my opinion and are subjective and not based on fact. These ratings are 100% fact, not subjective, absolutely right and correct in all aspects. Grand Forks, United States of America. The stage is set. Canada is coming in after a devastating gold medal loss the year prior. Another beautiful NHL lockout year allowed Canada to get some players that otherwise may not have attended. The roster had some noticeable losses, such as Jeff Tambellini and Brent Burns. However, they also had some noticeable gains, such as Shea Weber, Andrew Ladd, and maybe most notably, Patrice Bergeron. And this was also the second year we got to see Sidney Crosby, and the year, arguably, he really showed everyone the talent that he is. The tournament kicked off against Slovakia, with Canada taking the 7-3 win on Christmas Day. 2 days later, Canada was set to take on the Swedes, who were thought to be a close contender. However, Canada continued domination with an 8-1 win. Furthering the winning streak, Canada continued, taking on Germany 9-0 and Finland 8-1 to finish the group rounds with a 4-0 record and 32 goals for and only 5 goals against, earning a bye into the semifinals. The Ovechkin-charged Russians also saw a bye into the semis, and it was looking early on that it could be a Russia versus Canada final. The hockey world was drooling. Canada took on the Czech Republic in the semis and slid through with a 3-1 win, keeping their winning streak alive and heading to the gold medal game for the 4th consecutive year. This year, their record gave them confidence, but they had been here before.
The other way, O'Sullivan racing towards it, and it goes in! It goes in! It goes in!
Okay, I'll stop. And it was off. The matchup of the century, Canada versus Russia. A sure-to-be close game and a battle down to the wire. 51 seconds in and Getzlaf scores, putting Canada up 1-0 early on. The momentum from that initial goal wouldn't slow down. Canada breezed through the game. It was a physical game that Canada dominated. And Russia didn't show too much aside from some big hits from Ovechkin. Oh, and Malkin was there somewhere. Going into the 3rd, Canada was up 6-1 and pretty much had it in the books. The crowd was full of Canadians who made that little jaunt down to Grand Forks, and they were loud. The last minute brought a standing ovation down to the final buzzer, and Canada took gold for the first time in 7 years. Crosby closed that tournament out with 6 goals and 3 assists and would go on to become the first overall draft pick in the 2005 NHL draft. But the real star of the show was Patrice Bergeron, who finished the tournament first in scoring with 5 goals and 8 assists. The 2005 team is nothing to scoff at, loaded with what would become huge names, a dominant offensive force that outscored their opponents 41-7 and kept a flawless 6-0 record right to gold. It is one of the greatest teams of all time. One of. The team that competed in Ottawa 2009 resembled the 2005 team in many ways. An offensive force, some soon-to-be big names, a first overall draft pick, and a sparkling 6-0 record. But It had something the 2005 team didn't: excitement, and the fact that the gold medal almost never was. Canada strolled through the preliminary round, kicking the tournament off with an 8-1 win against the Czech Republic, with John Tavares grabbing 3 points right off the bat. Next up was Kazakhstan, which proved to be no match for Canada as they took the contest 15-0. They finished up with a 5-1 win against Germany and a 7-4 victory over the United States, which again earned them a bye straight to the semis. Because neither the second or third team placed in the A pool won their quarterfinal game, we found ourselves in the semis with 3 teams from the B pool and only 1 from the A pool, which led to a Canada vs. Russia matchup for the semifinals. Canada scored early on in the first to go up 1-0, but Russia answered back fairly quickly, tying it back at 1. They exchanged goals again, Canada going up 2-1, Russia shortly after returning the score to a tie at 2-2. The second period was filled with penalties, but it was Canada that scored the lone goal, with Eberle putting them up 3-2 to head into the third. Russia scored early in the third to tie it again 3-3, and Canada continued the pattern, scoring next to take the lead for the 4th time in the game. But then Russia broke the back and forth and scored 2 goals, putting them up 5-4 with less than 3 minutes left in the game. This puts the heart rates of all Canadian fans up everywhere, as it was looking like their 4-year gold medal streak was actually in danger of being broken. The clock was ticking down and it felt hopeless. There wasn't enough time left. But then, 5.4 seconds remaining and...
Chuck looking for it. Tavares pulls it out. Tavares backhand towards the goal. Loose puck. Everybody scores! Tie game! Can you believe it?
Okay, one more time.
Towards the goal. Loose puck. Everybody scores! Tie game!
Canada exhales through screams as their chance was back, and we were going into overtime. Nothing was decided in the extra time, and we were on to a shootout, which added extra excitement. Through 3 shooters, we still didn't have a winner, and the shootout continued. Until once again, Eberle comes to the rescue, scoring the game-winning goal and sending Canada to the gold medal game for the 8th year in a row. Canada took that momentum from the semis into the gold game against Sweden, with PK Subban scoring just 38 seconds in, giving Canada the early lead. However, that would be the only goal scored in the first, and it would head into the second a tight race. In a penalty-filled second period, Canada scored again, putting them up 2-0 heading into the third. The penalties continued in the third, but the offense also picked up, with Canada scoring early in the period again. Sweden finally answered back to put the contest at 3-1, but that would be their only goal. Canada scored 2 empty net goals to end the game with a 5-1 victory. This gold medal was a special one, good for a record-tying 5th consecutive time. This was also Canada's 11th straight medal, continuing the streak that started in 1999. Canada ended the tournament with a perfect 6-0 record, 46 goals for, with 3 players in the top 3 tournament scorers, with Tavares being named the tournament MVP on home soil. It was harder than you would think to narrow down all the Canadian World Junior teams to a top 5, and there were some memorable mentions. But as I said, this video is 100% fact and is not subjective, so these are the ratings as they stand, set in stone. Would your ratings be different? You would be wrong, but what would your ratings be? Let me know in the comments below. And while you're down there, be sure to hit that subscribe button, ring the bell if you want to be the first to know when my next video goes up. I will send the very first viewer cookies. So, it's pretty tempting. Thanks for watching, everyone. Follow my social channels listed below to keep up and know what I'm going to dive into next. And I'll see you in the next one.